We're 5 minutes in, so let's go ahead and start. You guys, in case some of you don't know, we have John Abernathy and Pierre Lavie with us, and we're going to go through their story. First, if you guys have a second way of looking, or you can split your screen, we're going to show some of the photos off of my phone today because we're trying to share. And when we haven't got the shared thing figured out yet, so we're literally going to show you photos from the thing we're talking about as we go through it, and the sequence of them. I picked out about 15 of them, maybe 17 or 18 that Pierre has sent me that he shot of the incident with John. And I'll try to hold it up on the screen while these guys are talking when we're talking about each picture, so you can get a sense of what we're talking about. And then next time we have to do this, hopefully we'll have we have to get third-party software to do the screen sharing, even though they told us we can do the screen sharing. But anyways, for those of you who don't know, John and Pierre have been covering and will be covering the protests in Minnesota, and they've been deep in it. And we're going to go through a specific story today that happened to both of you guys, really, if you want to put it that way.
It's mutual.
Mutual, yeah, it was mutual. And the interesting thing is that they didn't know each other before this incident. They never met, never talked. They may have seen each other because that's what camera guys do. They kind of they get close and they see each other's gear. And I remember some of my friends used to be like, "Is that Nikon or Canon?" But that's about when they're working and stuff like that. They stay pretty focused. John, almost spilled the mug. John, tell us a little bit about your background. And you're from Minneapolis originally. You live there now.
Yeah, I'm born here, and I'm here now, and I'm an independent documentary photographer. And so I've been on the streets photographing the ICE protest as well as all the George Floyd stuff. And prior to that, I was doing architecture and product and food and whatnot.
Yeah, so that's the interesting thing for me is that you've been a professional photographer your whole career, but now you're sort of like in this journalism world. In the last couple of big events that have happened in Minnesota with George Floyd and now with the protests, and that to me is just you don't see that transition very often in life. You went from being commercial photographer where they actually pay you properly to covering news where it's actually it's valuable to society. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's a big change, but I've always been interested in it, and I've always loved photographers like Salgado, for instance, and the old black and white documentary photographers have always been with me since high school, really.
So how did that happen? How did the change happen? Was it just because of the events that happened, or?
Well, I've kind of done street photography for quite a while, and then when the George Floyd protests started happening, I was just really drawn to go out there. Actually, the first couple days I went out, I only went with a phone because I didn't know what to expect, and I didn't, if I went out there with my Canon, I wasn't sure how it was going to be received. And then later on, I bought another, like a Leica that was smaller, and I just felt more comfortable on the street with it. And I photographed a lot of that, and some of that was pretty intense as well, and that was sort of my training grounds for what's going on now.
Well, so strangely, and this might go over some of your all's heads, a little inside baseball, but were you shooting Leica on that day?
Was I shooting Leica on the day I was tackled?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the camera that's flying through the air, and it's now sort of famous.
By the way, Leica makes some pretty expensive stuff. And yeah, and throwing your Leica around is if it was Canon, you could replace it a lot easier. But the advantage of Leica is its shutter it doesn't make any noise. It's not.
Yeah, it's very quiet. Yeah. Sometimes
so
I have a hard time hearing it when I'm shooting, especially in protests. Sometimes I can feel it in my finger, but unless it's been super cold here. It's actually warmed up now, but it was like minus 28 about a week or so ago, and my fingers were so freaking cold that I couldn't feel the shutter when I was pushing on it. My fingers were just numb. So I try to hear it or listen for the click or feel the shake in the camera when I hit it. But it's like the weather conditions are bad too. And actually I was talking with my wife about it, how it's getting warmer now, and we're both kind of bummed because we feel like the freezing temperature is like it's like works against ice.
Yeah.
Too much ice for ice.
Yeah,
asses off.
Yeah, they're not
Um,
used to it.
tell me a little bit about what it was like on January 15th. What was it? Set the stage for us here. Tell what was it cold? I mean, obviously it was cold, right? And
Yeah,
what was the scene like? If you describe that for me, paint a picture.
yeah, I'm sure it was cold. I don't remember the exact temperature. I don't think it was. I mean, relatively cold for Minnesota at least. So there's snow on the ground and whatever. But it was January 15th, and I heard there was going to be a veteran-led protest at the Federal Whipple Building. So I went there, and when I got there, it was just pretty much a typical protest with a decent-sized crowd across the street from the Whipple Building, and just chanting and waving their signs and flags or whatever. And then occasionally some agents would drive in a vehicle, and they maybe would approach the vehicle and yell at them and voice their opinion about what's going on. And in the entryway of the driveway for the Whipple building, there was two squad cars with maybe three or four agents in and around it, just watching the crowd to see what was going on. And then a little while later, they 100 agents came out, formed sort of like a military formation around the squad cars with multiple rows of multiple agents. And then they spread out in a line across down on the edge of the street, directly across the street from the protesters. And that's kind of pretty much when things changed.
So let me back up a little bit. How far away do you live from the Whipple building? Is it a long drive?
Maybe 25 or 30 minutes.
Hmm. And so when they came out and they started spreading this line around, did you say in front of their cruisers?
Uh, yeah, they were like this cars were in the entryway, sort of like a driveway into the parking lot. So when they first came out, they formed like multiple rows of multiple agents, sort of like a military formation on either side of the cars. And then they came forward to the street and formed one long line.
And for what? Was it? I mean, the protesters were across the street from the building, right?
Mostly across the street. Occasionally, people would enter the street or go past the halfway point. At that point, they were saying nobody's allowed to pass the halfway point because that's federal property, and if you do, you'll be arrested or whatever. So occasionally, people would come out and they'd scream at either the agents that were just by themselves in the cars, or or if cars with agents were coming into the parking lot, they would go approach those cars and yell at them. Occasionally, maybe bang on it with their hand.
How many
And then
protesters do you think there were outside of the Whipple building?
I don't know. What do you think, Pierre? Like 100, 200?
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't.
100 or so. I'm terrible at that game.
Yeah,
But like, yeah,
I
100.
mean,
yeah.
5,000
Wasn't
or
it?
yeah,
No, no, no.
No.
It was just
relatively
100
small
to
group of people, really, frankly.
relatively small. Hmm.
And they
Not a
brought like
threat.
100 guys out.
What's that?
They brought like 100 guys out.
Yeah, it was clearly
Show
a
of force,
show of
willpower.
power. Yeah,
Yeah,
force. Yeah.
yeah.
And that alone, just them showing up, agitated the crowd, so they were getting louder at when they came out because I mean, it really was just a show of force.
And were you both on where the protesters were? In other words, you were standing lawfully on the side of where the protesters were and not doing anything illegal at that point, or
No,
We
I
didn't do
personally,
anything legal at any point.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, no, we were just on the other side of the street, milling around, doing our thing.
so
And
what was
just weaving
happening?
it.
So go ahead.
Oh yeah, we were just weaving in and out of the crowd. I'm sure Pierre was too, but I was, most photographers are going from this side to that side, from the front to the back, just seeing what's around the photograph. And at some point, they threw a flashbang in the crowd, and that's well, actually, Pierre, do you remember when the flashbang went? Was that before or after the agitators came? I can't remember. I think it
It
was.
was after the agitators came, and it was like right as they were crossing the street to engage the protesters.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Oh,
they
so you
threw
guys
like a couple right away.
the agitators. You're using that term. I know.
Hmm.
Who are you referring to when you're saying the agitators? It can be a little confusing.
Yeah,
Sure.
at some point, four far right agitators came, and they had like flags and bear spray, and they entered the protest Whipple side of the street, which none of the protesters ever enter from that side. They always enter and across the street and come come up the sidewalk to where the protest is. They were on the Whipple side of the building, and they came and stood right in front of the agents, turned their back to the agents, and had bear spray and were pretty much taunting the crowd.
Oh, so the agents had no problem with the far right people standing in front of them.
Nope.
And the far right people who are the agitators standing right in front of them, that would have been a no-go area for the protesters, correct?
Yeah, if we would have stood up there, or if the protesters would have gone that close to them, I mean, sometimes they were within just a couple feet, maybe even an agent could have reached out and touched one. If a protester was there, they would have been shoved to the ground or
That's really
shot.
interesting. They're sort of taking sides. I mean, in a case like this, the whole point of putting a show of force is so that there's a large group of people, they're letting that group know. I mean, this is how it's supposed to be, is how I'm describing it. You put a show of force out there so that these protesters know they can't put a run on the building, they can't do something that violates security protocol, whatever. Instead, these guys were out in front of you, and then the agitators came, and then they stood in front of them, and at that point, they took a side. They wouldn't force them back to the other side of the road or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a common thing that you see the side taking here when it comes to the ICE agents and anybody else that comes in that's on a far right side of the spectrum?
That's the first time I've seen the far right agitators show up while agents are there. How about you, Pierre?
No, I've seen the agitators come in before, and yeah, they get preferential treatment, even to the point where they detained one, and instead of a swarm of them tackling them like they did John here, they like very gently enveloped them into their ranks. Like, I'm not kidding. I'm not
like
kidding.
a detainment kind of thing. Like,
Yeah, it was like they
pat him on
just
the
sort of
back.
like allowed him and guided him in very gently and calmly. And then as he was walking away, like his hands were not detained, like were not bound or anything. And yeah, I mean, it was very cordial, very yeah.
It was an orchestrated huddle.
Well, and the funny part about that is let's just be honest. If you wanted to detain somebody who was protesting because you thought they've done something unlawful, in most cases, you could probably detain them that way. Mm-hmm. You don't have to bring 20 people onto one guy, slam him on the ground, kick him in the face, and spray him with bear spray to detain him. You could just say you're under arrest for whatever you want to charge them with, and then put your cuffs on them, turn them in, charge them, and then turn them out again. If that's what the court system would prefer. But the protests that I see, and I'm not there, and I'm careful about saying I'm not there, but the stuff I see on TV, which is edited and all that kind of stuff, seems to be they come in force with everybody, and they take them down, and it's very aggressive when they could really just cuff them, take them off, and charge them with a crime. I don't want to get too off track, but so in this particular instance, what was happening is you had these agitators yelling and screaming, and you had the protesters obviously yelling and screaming at them and the ICE guys, right? So what happened next? Walk me through that.
Well, they do the agents would do pushbacks where the whole line of agents would walk across the street, push the crowd back to the opposite side of the street, and then they
already were.
Yeah, I mean, where they already were, basically, until they came out.
Back 14 more inches, you agitators. You do homegrown
some of the fiercest, most threatening and non-threatening women, and vets, and I consider myself an older man, like old guys. I mean, it's just like it's ridiculous what they're doing. Yeah.
So visually, what you got, because we can't forget about the fact that you guys are not protesters, you're photographers. Visually, what were you thinking in terms of what the story was at that point?
Aggression of the agents.
And you could feel that coming on. You could see that. You started sort of probably at that point moving around to try to capture that.
Yeah, I mean, as a photographer, as an observer, you can see energy changes in the crowd and in the agents that maybe a protester can't see because they are the energy. So I'm just sort of staying in tune with the agents and how their energy is shifting. And when they start getting aggressive, you have to consider where you're going to be, and then when they retreat, you can get closer to them and whatever. So I was just trying to pick angles of them coming towards protesters that showed their aggression.
And how are they treating you guys when you're trying to photograph them? I mean, prior to the incident that happened, like, are you able to talk to them and say, hey, am I in your space? And is this distance okay? Or are you just shooting and not talking to them at all, just ignoring them?
You don't really engage with them very much. At least I don't.
I don't either. I pretty much never talk to them at all.
And are they the same way with you?
Like I will, like, if I need to, like, have a hand up and, camera up and hand up, kind of like, just doing my job, am I okay here? Am I okay here? I try to be respectful.
You guys carry credentials with you at all of any type?
Mhm.
Yeah. So they can see your credentials.
I didn't have any on that day.
I see. And
I wear a big thing that says press.
Yeah.
Here, helmet. Yeah.
Yeah. They probably look at that literally and walk up and press your press thing.
With a baton.
So what?
Yeah.
Well, let me just ask real quick to Pierre. Pierre, you came all the way from Dallas. I mean, you live in Dallas, right?
Mm-hmm.
What made you decide, hey, I want to be a part of covering this, and why was it important to you? You're a freelance guy, so I know you're repped by some agencies, but like, given the state of photography, you probably, were you there on your own dime? You just wanted to be there?
Yes, a group of colleagues and I have been following the border patrol around the country, essentially. Chicago, Memphis, New Orleans, Minneapolis. And so a couple weeks ago, when the focus shifted to Minneapolis for them, we were there. So, yeah.
And so you guys walk me through the incident itself. Tell me how it came to this sort of boiling point where, John, you best I can recollect by looking at the photos, you kind of manhandled. I did have one person ask me a question today. Does anybody have video of the 2 minutes leading up to that? And I think that was almost I don't want to put words in the person's mouth, but it almost feels suggestive, as if the photos don't tell the whole story and what was happening leading up to that. So I'd like you guys to address that 2 minutes or so before John was tackled to the ground.
Yeah, I've had that, I'll call, accusation multiple times of like, well, what was he doing leading up to that? Because they wouldn't just do that to him for no reason. So, but earlier they threw a flashbang into the crowd, and I went over there to go see what was happening and maybe photograph it. And as soon as I got there, I got shot twice in the thigh with pepper bullets, which is extremely painful. I got the hell out of there for no reason. There was no reason.
You, or are they just shooting into the crowd randomly?
I don't know, to be honest, but I'm pretty sure they picked people out, and I don't know why. But I got shot twice. It hurt like hell. I got out of there, and I was back. That was down towards the end of the group. I went back towards the middle, and I think they were doing a couple more pushbacks. And I think one of the photos that you were using on Facebook of mine is the agents on the right side of the frame with their masks on, and then there's protesters on the right, including the guy with the flag and the mask on in the middle.
Yeah.
That photo was taken, I think it was 2 minutes before my last photo was taken and Pierre's photo.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 minutes before, I was photographing what was going on, and in that particular moment seems relatively calm. But then I was all the way across the street from the federal building into a driveway that goes into a parking lot, and I'm not exactly sure. I've never gone back to look and see how far in I was, but I'd say at least 10 feet into this driveway, maybe more.
I think we were right at the bottleneck, we were right at the top part.
Yeah.
So you were on private property at that point.
I don't know if that's federal property there or not, but it's I'm not sure what that building is there. I've never actually looked to see what it is, but there's a building.
When you said you were on the driveway, I thought you were like some person's driveway or something like that.
No, it's
an industrial area, it's a commercial area. So
okay, so you were kind of you were in an area and they were doing these pushbacks. Let me just clarify this one more time. When they do these pushbacks, was there any reason to push anybody any further back than where they were?
No.
Like, was there a surge of protesters that made them line up and push people back? I mean, that's the kind of thing that people on the right are looking for, those kinds of contextualizations to see whether or not there was even reason for that push in the first place. There should be a reason that somebody pushed you back somewhere.
There was no reason for the agents to be out to begin with.
About like any of this is reasonable.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Even that day though, when they had 4 agents in the driveway to the Whipple building, that's reasonable to keep, to have people there to keep protesters from entering the property. That's reasonable.
Yeah. Right.
But 100 agents coming out to show force was not reasonable. In my opinion, the protesters were not out of control or violent.
You weren't trying to climb the fences or anything.
They weren't. And now it's, now it's
some really good insults being thrown, but I mean,
yeah. Well, that's the whole First Amendment thing, right? So
yeah,
and these guys are supposed to understand that. But I think I did a video last night that kind of explains a lot of that. I mean, you've got a lot of ex-military guys who retired. And by the way, I covered my whole life. All I did is cover conflicts around the world. I got no problem with the U.S. military. I have a lot of friends who are in the military. I've worked with them from every rank you can imagine, from private all the way up to 4-star generals. And the people who do it right in the U.S. military, they're doing very hard, very difficult work in places that most people could never comprehend. And but some of those guys, when they come out, they still some of them go to college and they get a degree and they go on to do something else in their life. Maybe it's national defense or cybersecurity, whatever they do. And then some of them came out and they're infantry guys and they choose not to do that. And they're looking for that contract job. And these are perfect for those people who just want to continue to have weapons in their hands and play infantrymen. You have a lot of those. You've got some ex-law enforcement people who've retired, and the money oftentimes is better if you come in and perceived to be better with the $50,000 delayed bonus that they get. But nonetheless, they perceive that to be pretty good. And if they've got college loans to pay off, you got up to $60,000 to do that. So they're like, hey, this is not such a bad idea. But then you have these kids who are 18 years old, and the requirement now is that you're 18 and you have a high school diploma. You don't even, in fact, there's LA Times piece that I referred to yesterday that said that they don't even have to have a high school diploma anymore. Maybe they have to have a GED or something, but they do not have to have an undergraduate degree, and fuck all. And they can go out there and do that work. And so you have a lot of young kids there. And some of them are masked, and some of them, it's hard to tell how old everybody is, except probably from a little bit of body type. But you do have young kids there who don't know shit about the Constitution or the First Amendment or have adequate training in crowd control. They think crowd control is by shooting into crowds with pepper spray and pepper bullets and then spraying people with, bear spray and shit like that. And that's used for aggressive crowds,
right.
Anyways,
riots.
So, for riots. And that's what I think the Trump administration likes to call everybody. I say this a lot. They like to call everybody agitators, domestic terrorists, rioters. They use those terms instead of the word protesters. And a lot of these people are screaming and yelling. That's their First Amendment right. A lot of them are carrying that horrible thing called a sign with words on them. That's very aggressive. And then some people have those really dangerous things, not guns. They're concealed carry permits, but they're carrying their cell phones. And that to me is the most dangerous thing to them. And that's why people with cameras get shot and, arrested and things like that, because they are the witness to what these guys are doing. So tell me about how this whole thing happened with this last movement and what happened to you? Why did they tackle you in the first place, John?
Well, that's a good question.
Walk us through that scene.
Yeah. Well, some point earlier when the agitators were there, they had bear spray, and I noticed one of them was just holding it loosely. So I slipped it out of his hand and threw it behind me, basically de-escalating a threat to the community. And so I just saw him, like, he just had this disappointed look in his eyes when I did that. A little bit later, that's when the agents did that orchestrated march around him and brought him into the building. And then at one of the pushbacks, I was into the driveway across the street, and I thought they were finished with their pushback. And I got nailed from behind by 2 or 3 agents in green, which were Bureau of Prisons, and then taken to the ground. And at first, I didn't know what happened.
You were on prison property, right?
Nope, no.
And you were taken to the ground by people that said Federal Bureau of Prisons.
They got everybody. They got different agents from all sorts of different agencies.
No, I get it, but like if you're in the Bureau of Prisons, your jurisdiction is in the prison.
Right. Yeah. I'm not anywhere near a prison as far as I know.
Yeah.
Except for whatever's going on in the Whipple building.
Yeah. Okay. So keep going. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So I get taken to the ground. I got by at least 2 or 3 agents in green, and I've got knees on my back, and I'm face down. I literally don't know what happened. I'm looking at the ground. I'm like, I don't remember going down here. I'm just down here looking at the ground, and they're screaming at me to put my hands on my back, and I literally, like, so many things went through my head in these next few seconds. It's kind of insane. And after I was like, what the hell happened? Why am I looking at the ground? And then I saw the feet and everything around me. And then I started to realize that I've never said this in any other interview, but the first thing that came to mind was, is this all you got? Because they weren't trying very hard to pull my hands behind my back. I'm like, seriously? And like, in hindsight, I actually wish I would have tried to get up and run, but I don't know.
Well, let me just contextualize this a little bit to our viewers, okay? And you can see some of John's stuff. He's got on my Facebook, and I think on the Substack, we have listed these guys' social media sites, and I encourage you to go look at them. You can even look at them now if you wanted to. Pierre's stuff of the incident where he's photographing John being taken down. Is that on your Instagram stuff as well, Pierre?
Mm-hmm.
So you can see that there. I'm just going to give you a sense of what we're dealing with here. This is Pierre's photograph of these guys coming out of the Whipple building, right?
Yeah,
these are right. That's
a show of force.
That's crazy town. Like that to me is more equipped than often the special operations guys I've been in combat with are equipped. And I've been
they got all the money and all the toys right now.
Yeah.
So
they got I just heard that there's 32,000 munitions in town, and some military experts said that's insane for what's going on.
Yeah, it is. Here we're seeing you being tackled here, and then you can literally, I can honestly see that Pierre is really focusing on making sure he's got you in frame and your head's falling in the ground. And, Pierre's working at this point, and that's what photographers do. You miss these moments. They never come back. You can't reshoot them. This isn't Hollywood. So he's shooting and trying to get this incident because it's history in the making, right? And then you see John is on the ground at this point. It's just a rough frame of him being tackled. And you're in tight quarters there, I can tell, Pierre. You're pretty close. You're trying to find enough space to capture the whole frame. And then you start seeing John trying to get his wits about him here, right? You see John's face.
Well, he didn't fall like everybody else. He didn't fall, but he didn't go down like everybody else goes down. I noticed he went prone. Like he was on the ground laid out, like he was thinking. I don't know. And I honestly thought to myself, like, oh shit, he's going to look up. and I got it, and so that was what I was.
I think John is.
I did that for you.
You can look at John's hands. He's protecting his gear, which all camera people do when they're taken to the ground. And,
not all. a lot of people just yard sale.
The good ones do. And then you see here. Now this is where it starts getting really interesting to be frame by frame. You can see John's facial expression here. And if this isn't a great image for you guys, just please go and look at it because they're on Facebook, on my Facebook page.
Yeah, you got to look at this one.
Yeah.
Go ahead, John, and talk this one through.
You need to look at this one on Pierre's page because it's hard for me to see, but I think that's the one where there's one agent's hands on my phone and he's trying to pull it out. Is that right? Yeah. And there's another. and there's another arm right behind that agent on my arm.
Right.
I don't think that's the one.
No, that's not
It's
the
not.
one. But you're
Oh, okay.
looking. You have eye contact with Pierre at that point.
Yeah. So I
What's
remember
going through your mind?
I'm on the ground,
Holy
face
shit.
down. Yeah. I'm trying, like, a lot is going through my mind. I'm wondering how I got here. I'm wondering why they're screaming at me. And then I'm thinking, I start to like almost kind of panic, like, what's going to happen if I go into this building? Am I ever going to see my camera or my images again? So I decided to just look up and see if I see a photographer. Pierre was standing there, and I'd never met Pierre before, seen him, and I just decided to throw my camera, and it landed, I think, only like a couple feet in front of you, right?
Yeah. Couple feet in front of me.
You guys can tell from this image, that's the camera down there at the bottom of the frame, and it's in mid-flight.
Yeah.
So you can tell that there's at some point in Pierre's career he had a sports background because he caught the camera in midair.
No,
You know,
it wasn't midair. It wasn't midair. It was on the ground, and I
at that
snatched
point, is
the.
it on the ground?
No, that the frame, like the
Oh, you caught the
image right
photo,
there,
yeah.
it's in the air, but I didn't actually like catch it in the air.
No, I'm talking. You caught you caught the frame of it when it's in midair.
Got it. Yes, yes,
Right?
yes.
Your sports photography background. You know, you got the action scene. You didn't let it hit the ground when the scene was gone. You caught it midair. And honestly, this is almost a Super Bowl-esque toss between the legs of the ice agent around the legs by John. It's almost like you guys coordinated this shit, but you had never met at that point, not once,
No.
not seen each other.
We didn't know the other existed. I mean,
Did you have any voice contact with him when you threw it to him? Did you say, "Hey, can you take this?" or anything like that? It was just all.
hey friend, I'm having a moment. Could you hold on to this? No.
You mind watching this while I go inside?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a thought in my head that because I saw on your facial expression, it looked like you might have been saying something, and I thought maybe it was like, can you just grab this, for me or something? But you just threw it at him, and he picked it up, right?
Yeah, I just figured my chances were greater if I throw it into the crowd than if I take it in with me. So I just threw it, and luckily it landed on the base plate. It didn't land on the lens or the screen on the back. It didn't tumble. It just landed, and I was like kind of amazed that nothing actually happened to it.
And then it gets a little weirder here. I mean, you can see in this frame here, you've gotten rid of the camera, and you're pretty. I mean, they're all over you at this point. They've surrounded you as if the rescue team of SEAL Team 6 is coming to pull you out of the crowd. But they're all over top of you, and they're all on top of you. What are you thinking at this point? Were you actually like, "Thank God my camera's not going to be handled by these people"?
Well, I don't. Go ahead.
I was just thinking, I got to get my phone out.
Yeah. So, I mean, the first thing was getting rid of my camera. And I don't have a memory of those guys' hands on my phone or on my arm. But I think I must have known that at the moment, gotten it loose and threw it. But I think one hand was still on my arm because when I threw it, it did not go far.
Yeah, here's where they have you by the arm, that next frame. You're thinking about it the frame before, and you're thinking about it here, and they've got you by the arm. And I think at that point, you're starting to decide, I need to get rid of the phone too.
Yeah. So I throw the phone, but I think there's one hand still on my arm. So I don't throw it very far. Literally, it seemed like it went 2 feet in front of me. And then I saw a green boot land on it. And it was the weirdest feeling inside. Like, after all I fucking went through just now, seeing that green boot landed on my phone was like the biggest disappointment ever. I was like, I put my head back down after that. I was like, shit, I don't know what that meant, but then Pierre can tell you how he got the phone, which is great.
And here's another great sports action shot from Pierre capturing the phone in midair again. And so now Pierre's got, I mean, you should, if you know anything about a photographer, even when they're traveling light, they have probably a donkey bag or something like that, or a backpack. And then they've got 3 or 4 lenses on a day like this. They don't want to carry too much, and maybe a couple bodies, right? That's what I'm guessing.
2 bodies, 2 lenses.
Yeah. There you go. 2 bodies, 2 lenses, and a bag. And so you've got already enough gear in your hands, and he's throwing shit at you.
I know. I told him the next time he throws a camera at me, though, I'm keeping it.
So I don't. It's interesting. Did you feel secure at that point, John, that you'd kind of gotten rid of stuff where somebody had it that wasn't going to do bad to your? Because really, it's a phone and the camera is one thing, but the images are where your value is. You can always replace, and you have insurance for those things, but you cannot replace the images of history when they're happening. Were you thinking that at all?
Well, I was thinking I got to get rid of this shit because I don't know what's going to happen when I go inside. So, but once it left my hands, I can't say that I was like, okay, it's safe now. I didn't feel that at all. I was in a panic until it was back in my hands, like several hours later.
Right. And then here you've got Pierre still shooting, still doing his job. And I just want to raise some attention here to the point that my story yesterday on Substack talked about the things that they have to pass to become ICE officers. One of those things, aside from their training, is a physical fitness test. I would say that the guy on both the right and left and the guy in the middle are probably not. I would be very surprised if they could pass a physical fitness test. Just,
Yeah.
I don't know what the standards are, but I don't think they're very high.
I mean, this guy's 300 pounds if he's an ounce.
Yeah, they're I don't know what the standards are either, but yeah, they're not all reaching the standards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then honestly, I thought, and I don't know if you really were thinking about this, but you've got all the smoke from whatever flashbangs they're throwing in the background. You got these guys acting tough, and then you have an upside down flag off in the distance, which I thought was nice framing of that. I mean, I think you guys
with the resist flag as well.
Yeah, the resist flag.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is the kind of stuff that, and then this, honestly, this must have happened afterwards. Is this in sequence? They pepper sprayed you after all this happened?
Yeah. So after I threw my phone and camera, well, first of all, like a couple frames earlier on one of the shots that's pulled back, you can see that there's like a light cloud in front of me, and that's pepper bullet powder, which when the pepper bullets, when they shoot them at the ground, it just creates this super fine mist, and anything lifts it up in the air. Walking through it, like let's say it was shot on the ground yesterday and someone walks through it, it lifts up in the air and the crowd will start coughing. And so they'd shot a few of those on the ground. And at that point, I was already having a hard time breathing from that. And then seconds later, they deployed a tear gas canister within very close range. I couldn't hardly see anything beyond the 2 feet in front of me. And then I was having a hard time breathing. I realized I probably had maybe 3 breaths left. And I was like, that's for me when the fear really kicked in. I was like, there's something's about to happen and it's going to happen soon. And I figured I was either going to throw up or I'm going to pass out. My mouth was like down by the ground. I'm gagging like crazy. And then at this last second, I see this hand come around the front of my face and spray me right in the eye with pepper spray. So the entire side of my face is coated with pepper spray there. It's in my eye. And at this point, I'm 100% defenseless. And I took my own hands out and put them on my back just so I could get out of the situation.
So, yeah. And that's, to me, when you were on the ground and you had thrown that stuff to Pierre, you already had people on top of you, or you were immobilized, right?
Yeah, I had at least two knees on my back. And actually, I tie my camera strap around my wrist, and then it's like, I actually don't know how I got that off my wrist and was able to throw the camera in just like a couple of seconds. I don't remember taking it off my wrist. I don't know how I did that.
And what were they saying to you at that point? They have to be giving you some sort of instructions.
They were screaming at me that they got me because they saw me bear spraying my people, which I thought was weird terminology. And I said, no, you didn't. And they said, yes, we did. And then they were screaming at me to put my hands on my back, but I never did until they pepper sprayed me in the eyes.
So at one point, let's just back up. You saw one of the guys who was a protester. He had bear spray in his hands, and you grabbed it from him and threw it away, right?
Yeah, I threw it behind me. Later on, I noticed it was in the driveway near the curb or something, and I decided to pick it up again and throw it between these like there was like boxes of I don't know what, and by some tree there, so it wouldn't get used on either side against either side.
Right. So you're de-escalating on your side, and
Yeah,
almost to say like, don't be stupid here. You could protest, but don't bring
yeah,
this shit onto us because they'll start shooting people. Right.
right, yeah,
You'll give them deadly force authorization. Easily.
yeah.
Right. And so you were like, idiot, you're going to throw this away, and they saw that as you trying to spray people with it.
Yeah, I know they didn't think that I sprayed anybody. They just said that as the reason. I feel that I was taken down as punishment. That was payback for interrupting whatever the far right agitators were doing with the bear spray. So
Mhm.
I interrupted that moment, and that was payback.
So did they? So when they then they took you into custody and then took you in the building. What happened?
Yeah, they handcuffed me after
Hold
when I
on.
put my hands
I
up.
screwed up here. I screwed up.
Go
Pierre,
ahead.
what were you seeing when you were watching all this go down? What were you seeing and what were you thinking?
I hope that shit was in frame or focus.
No,
Uh,
that's true. Like, because
I mean,
they did all that stuff to him. It's kind of like it's like kind of wasted moments. The history's gone, right?
yeah, I mean, and it's and there's more to come, right? So like John's event happened and they had taken him away and I had a new camera and phone. I was just like, no, I mean, I asked a friend immediately. I was like, "Do you know that guy?" I started asking people, "You know that guy? You know that guy?" And nobody did, and I knew that with his phone, I could get in contact with somebody, so I wasn't like stressing about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was.
And
Yeah,
you
I'll bet
can.
you were.
And so they took you. They take you inside the Whipple building.
Yeah, they handcuffed me, turned me around, and at the time I couldn't see. My eyes were just a mess. It's basically like if you coated your eyeball with Vaseline. When they stood me up, I had no idea that there was that many guys around me when I was on the ground. When they stood me up and turned me around, I still didn't know because I couldn't see. I didn't know that until I saw Pierre's photos and some videos later, like how many people were actually around me. So I had an agent arm in arm on either side of me, walked me towards the building, told me to watch out for this or that, but I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about because I can't see it. And then they walked me into the Whipple building, uh, sit me down on a bench, and with my back to the wall, and start questioning me.
Did they clean up your face at any
I was
point?
just asked, did they give you any sort of treatment? Yeah.
No, I was in total agony, and I couldn't answer their questions. I mean, my face, my skin was burning. My eyeballs were just on fire. And I'm just moaning and yelling. And then two agents stand me up, arm in arm, walk me back outside. A third agent follows with a bottle of water with knife holes in the top, plastic bottle water. And I bend over and he squeezes it to shoot water up and flush my eyes out. And then he wipes my face off with wet wipes. And
How
then
long did
walk me.
how long
What's
did
that?
this period how long did this period last between them walking you in and then finally walking you out to clean you up? How many minutes?
Um, that's hard to say. A few minutes. I don't know how long it was. 10 minutes? I don't know. But even
That's a
after
long
rinsing me
time.
out and wiping me down, I'm still not fine, but now I can function.
Right.
So they walk me back in arm, third agent trailing behind, sit me back down on the bench, ask me why well, first they asked me if I had any weapons. I didn't. They asked me if what was my purpose of being there today. I said I'm a photographer, not a protester. And I said, why am I in here? And he said, we'll get to that. They never they never read me my rights. They never offered a phone call. They never offered um, talking to a lawyer or anything like that. And they questioned me a little bit. They searched me, but they did like a super poor search. They knew I wasn't a threat. They didn't search my armpits or my crotch or my boots or probably other places as well. They just like
Just
basically
a real casual pat down.
yeah, and took my stuff out of my bags. Had a bag on my back with like where I usually have some of my PPE, and then I had a camera.
Did they say at that point that you were under arrest?
No, they never. I don't think they ever used those words. But I said, "What am I in here for?" And they said, "We'll get to that later."
Did they at any point did they say to you, obviously you were being detained, but they didn't say you were under arrest. They didn't read you your rights. And they asked you questions that at any point, nobody said to you, you have a right to remain silent or anything, right?
No, they never said that. They never, nothing, anything like that.
That's,
And
yeah.
and I was pretty distorted, like at that point. Like I should have, in hindsight, I'm like, why didn't I suggest any of that? But I was out of it. Like,
Yeah, sure.
just
I mean, that's what this stuff does to you, right? Like you're in a lot of pain. And just we're gonna just in a little aside for those people. There's a lot of people on here that are working up in Minnesota as protesters, and some may be even journalists. I have a former student of mine at Columbia University who's literally working down. I'm not going to say who it is, but he's working down at some of the sites down in Texas personally himself, making his own film. Good for you, buddy. And so the big thing you need to understand is when they spray you in the face with pepper spray, all you're thinking about is the pepper spray. Period.
Yeah,
it's terrible. And it takes a lot of liquid to. I mean, I got sprayed with it one time, and there was no water around, so I rinsed my eyes out with Coca-Cola, which is acidic. But it was better. It was better to put acid in my eyes, citric acid, than it was to have the pepper spray in there. And that's the kind of shit that happens. But you do have a right to remain silent and not say a fucking word to these people. And if they're detaining you and they haven't said you're under arrest or what the charge is, you need to ask them, am I being charged with something? Am I free to go? Those are the first words you have to say. Am I free to go? If they say no, then say, what are you charging me with? And at that point, just you have a right to remain silent. I would like to call my attorney. Make all that stuff on the record. Make sure they're having to start wearing these body cams. They ask them if their body cam is on. Is your body cam on, please? Please turn your body cam on. And then keep that as a record when they don't turn it on. And then say to them, I do not give you permission to go through my bags. It's against my Fourth Amendment rights of a crime that you're going to charge me with. You cannot go through my stuff, okay? That's what you can tell them. It does not mean they're going to follow it. In the case of John, they're clearly not going to follow any of those instructions or requests. But it matters if they charge you, because any one of the things that he just described, a good attorney can get it thrown out for. And there are cameras in these buildings that your attorney can request through FOIA. And I don't know if there was one in the room where he was at, but there are those cameras. And if for them to take, to go through your gear and not read you your rights is definitely against your civil rights. So it's just something to now. You're not going to be thinking about that clearly when there's 20 people around you, surrounding you, intimidating. You're all in big gear. They have their fucking helmets on. They're carrying M4s with fucking silencers on to some of these people. That's the time you have to be really, really, really diligent about thinking about what is the next thing coming out of my mouth, and the pressure that they exert on you is constant. It's constant. And almost at a certain point where they give you some water to clean your eyes out, you're like, oh, thank God, this guy's my friend. He's letting me clean my eyes out for a split second. And then you come back to reality. Like, I'm being detained, and anything I say right here can be used to charge me with a crime. So don't fucking tell them anything. Get a lawyer. Anyways, that's just a story.
That's all true, but I think that part of what the issue is with these agents is their erratic behavior and their lack of
training,
lack of training, lack of ability to follow the law.
By the way, what John's saying is absolutely correct. They wear a sign on them that says police, but they're not police. There's nothing about them that's police. They do not have the authority to do the kinds of arrests that police officers do, and they don't have any investigative skills. Okay. And they really have no authority to be doing this. He's a private American citizen. Their job is not to arrest private citizens. That's the job of the police. So, they wear these things, and don't give them more credit than they deserve. If they wear a police thing, but they're actually border patrol or ICE or Homeland Security, they're not police officers. And by the way, they have, like John said, they have zero training in how to deal with crowds. They have zero training on how to deal with, civil rights law. They have zero training on criminal law. And they went through 7 days of training, and now they're compressing that even more.
They think they're immune basically to whatever laws they break. They are relatively immune, at least so far. So
they're immune so far because the Justice Department won't charge them. But there are a lot of crimes that do not have a statute of limitations. So like murdering 2 people in Minneapolis, that will not have a statute of limitations. And if they're charged by the state under state murder charges, these guys can go away and he can't pardon anybody.
Yeah.
So, the serious criminal offenses that have longer statutes of limitations, these minor misdemeanors of them mistreating you. But it's all important because at someday there'll be a reckoning for the way they're treating Americans. I believe that. And, there'll be lawyers who will be lining up to file charges against these people. There'll be lawyers that will be lining up to file civil cases against these people. They do not have immunity if they know they're breaking the law. And, they'll have, it's harder to press charges against them. But violations of the law, they don't have immunity of. The law is very clear on that. Supreme Court's been very clear on that.
Well,
so
the masking is protecting them as well. So
a little bit, which is great. You can get your phone up there and see what their badge numbers are, whatever they're wearing. Some have them, some don't. But don't be scared to ask them to identify themselves while they're on your camera, and make a mention of what they look like and their size, weight, height, things like that. There are records of people who work at these places because there's pay stubs to cover all that stuff, and good lawyers will fish all that shit out. ProPublica found the officers who killed Preddy. That was journalism that found those people. Okay, and they found them through records. So get as much information as you can when you're being harassed by these people. There's a day of reckoning for many of these people coming. Okay, so let me just get back in there. They did all this stuff to you, and when did they decide? Did they charge you with anything at all?
Yeah, after they went through my stuff, searched me and whatever, and questioned me a little bit. They didn't question me that much. Then they said, well, we have a video of you bear spraying, again, your people, which I think is strange terminology. First of all, I don't have any people there. I'm a photographer. The crowd is not mine. I don't know anybody there. Mm-hmm. And they said, we have a video of you bear spraying your people. I said, no, you don't. And they said, yes, we do. And I said, show me the video. And they said, we can't.
Yeah.
And they can't because it doesn't exist.
Correct. And so what happened? Did they charge you or not charge you?
They said, well, we're going to go easy on you. And I'm like, what is that supposed to mean? And
it means they have no evidence.
Yeah. He's like, we're not going to charge you for the bear spraying because they don't have video of it, obviously. And they charged me for impeding or obstructing normal access, which is bullshit because I was never impeding anything. There's video of me, like I was doing a Facebook Live, and you can probably hear me on there. When a car came down the road, I'd say open up so they could get through, and the crowd would open up and the car would go through. And I was weaving in and out of this crowd the whole time anyways. I was never in one place impeding anything. So my lawyer said it's just bullshit and they'll drop it as soon as we go to court.
Yeah, it's going to get thrown out. And and that's what they do. They would love to have every private citizen in this country spend all their hard-earned money on lawyers. That's part of the game.
Yeah.
Intimidation is, how much is this going to cost you if we're able to charge you with a federal crime? Mm-hmm. And you have to go to court. So, even in cases like this right here, they could see my Facebook or my Substack and, charge me with, come in, try to intimidate me at my front door and then say they're going to charge you with a crime. And that's when you have to say, are you charging me or aren't you? Am I under arrest? Am I not? Am I free to go? Because they're looking for reasons to charge you with crimes, because it just, and then they publicize it. It's not like a lot of the stuff they're not trying to hide. The aggression, I'm convinced that the aggression is deliberate because it carries a lot more weight if millions of Americans see these people getting their ass kicked for no reason, And so a lot of the aggression, because they're masked, they don't think they're going to get caught. And it carries a lot of weight on places like Fox News, and then they say, we took down these agitators, and, just so my general rule in these places is to tell people, follow the law to the best of your understanding of it. If you want to blow, I told this on my other thing, and I've been in a lot of riots and protests, including Egypt when Mubarak stepped down, and, just insane, 100,000 people, and where things went really, really bad. The first thing I would suggest is, if you're going to blow whistles to attract other people to come to the protest, fine, blow the whistles, but don't get right up in an agent's face and do it. because you're raising the temperature of a person who's going to lose control. And when he loses control, he might kill somebody or you. So back up. If you want to have a bullhorn, back up 20 feet, use your bullhorn. Give yourself a little bit of physical space from these people, because although you want them to be uncomfortable, you don't want them to react. And their reactions as untrained people will be is just as bad as your reaction as an untrained person. So you've got to be smarter and better than them when you're protesting. I mean, it's just my position on it, as a retired journalist and having been in a lot of these places. What are your all thoughts on this?
Go ahead, John.
Well, it's the difference between this and George Floyd, I think, is the more erratic behavior of the agents that are, like you say, you can't, if you're going up to them and you're filming them and you're screaming at them and you're in close range, you're accepting that possibility that something might happen to you. And because there's no definition of how they're going to respond to you. It's just erratic, and you don't know like when they're going to turn around or when they're going to, take you to the ground like they did with me, or even worse, what they've done with other people. But if you're protesting or if you're a photographer, you just have to realize how deep are you willing to go and what are the dangers in that area.
Yeah. I think we're going to try to take some questions here. First of all, we're glad you're safe, and it didn't do too much harm to your physical state. And are you okay? Are you having problems with what happened, or is it just one of those kind of things where it's almost like war zone comedy where you kind of laugh at it at the end? And some people don't understand this. We don't understand the war zone humor. Where you're laughing at the stuff that happens to you, and you're like, "That's not funny." It's like, yes, it's really funny. Right now,
it's both.
With post-traumatic stress and things that happen to you that are aggressive like that, right?
Yeah. No, I'm dealing with some of that, and like even prior to this, sometimes I'd have anxiety to go take photos. Not all the time, but sometimes I would. And this day, I had no fear, no anxiety, nothing until I thought I didn't know what was going to happen to me, but I figured I had 3 breaths left. So at that point, I had fear. But I forgot. I lost your question now.
You're still going back out, right?
Oh yeah, no, I'm still going back out. The day after was sort of a day of healing for me, and I did a lot of pacing, and then I realized I was underprepared with PPE. And the following day, Jake Lang was coming to downtown Minneapolis to protest. So I just spent the day after I was tackled healing and then preparing for when Jake Lang was going to show up. But then I went to Jake Lang and photographed that, and Pierre was there as well. We ran into each other.
It's like, hey,
how did you get your stuff?
How you feeling?
Your stuff back to him.
Oh well, after they let me out of the building, 2 guys walked behind me, walked me all the way to the other side of the parking lot, and there was a gate. I walked through the gate, and then those guys turned around. I went straight back to the protest, and there was a guy with a bullhorn. I'm like, "Can you walk up and down and ask if anybody sees my camera?" And nobody answered, and I was even more panicked than before.
Oh, yeah.
The whole time I was in that building, I was worried about it. Yeah, and then wants to interview me, and I'm in the middle of the interview. I just start shaking like uncontrollably, and I thought I was just cold because I didn't have my hat on. So I went to where I was tackled, and I saw my hat. I put my hat on. It was on the ground, and then I didn't realize this, but immediately after that, my eyes and my face were just in 100% burn mode again. I was so miserable. I was trying to get away from it. I was crawling on my knees, and there was like a medic there flushing my eyes out, wiping my face off, and it wouldn't go away. And I went away from the parking lot and with my head in the corner of this building to try to prevent anything in the air from coming around me. It was still burning, and I was in total misery. And then I realized it was my hat. I took my hat off. I took my hat off and threw it, and then they flushed me out again, wiped me down again, and then I was like, not okay, but somewhat functional. And then I saw someone I knew, and I called my wife and I said, "Can you track my phone down?" and it was going down Lake Street, which is about 25 minutes away or something. And then I went home, changed my clothes, and had my neighbor drive me to where Pierre was, which was eventually we hooked up downtown at his hotel. And when I got out of the car and saw him, I'm like, oh my God, thank you so much. I was so excited to see
Was it
him.
like a track my phone thing? You literally went to his hotel or whatever, and there he was.
Yep.
So I had a friend of mine when we left Whipple. I looked at the phone. There was emergency contact, medical contact thing, and it had his wife's number on there. So we called her and started the process of connecting so that we could get the phone back to him and the camera.
Pawn shop, Pierre.
Yeah, I know.
Like the lenses alone are worth some bucks.
Oh
Well,
yeah, no, I know.
He shoots Leica himself, so he would have just kept
Oh my
it.
God,
If I didn't find it.
interchangeable lenses.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So let's take a few questions here. I see a lot of them coming across. One of them was essentially, have you guys changed the way you're working based on what happened to you that day at all? Or does it give you pause or make you worried about going into doing what you're doing?
Pierre looks for people throwing cameras at him.
that's right.
Actually, I'd like to make a comment on that photo. Like, there was a lot of confident, very experienced photographers there that day that took photos of me, and Pierre sent me that photo of me throwing the camera, and I was like, this photo is literally epic, and I'm sure that none of this attention would be on this moment or this movement in Minneapolis without his photo. I mean, it's spectacular. The other ones would not have drawn that attention.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think, from our perspective, with the reason I wanted to talk to you today, even though it was like more than a week ago, couple of since the 15th, it's been like 2 weeks now since this happened, is, I'm seeing the news feeds, and being a person who spent a lot of my life both in print before I was a broadcaster and then broadcaster, you understand the news cycle just comes and goes. And with the Trump administration, there are 10 stories a day that are epic.
Mm-hmm.
You compare that with President Obama, and they talked for 5 days on Fox News about how he wore a brown suit in the White House. And, so you don't, with a normal presidency, you don't have 10 stories a week that are crazy. You have like maybe one that's controversial and a couple others that are mildly controversial. And the White House press corps, you're like, oh, these guys. But every day there's 5 or 6 huge stories that are happening because this guy it's me talking and not you as independent journalists, that are off the rails, insane. And so the coverage comes and goes, but Minneapolis is one of those places that we're hoping to try to keep the focus on. And, this was one way of doing that and showing not only what protesters doing, but journalists. I have journalist friends that are covering it, and some of them are scared to walk through the protester crowds because, like I have friends that work for CBS, and they know Barry Weiss is fucking over there, fucking up CBS, trying to fuck up my old show at 60 Minutes. By the way, one of her new hires is in the Epstein files, in case you guys didn't hear that. And
awesome.
And I heard that they were trying to rescind the offer against him, and I don't know what the current news today is, but she was fighting to keep him because and the word on the street from the CBS people is that because she's not into wokeism and cancel culture. So you have a guy who's in the Epstein files who's friendly with Epstein in the emails, friendly with him, and Barry Weiss apparently doesn't think that's a reason to get rid of him. But so you have these kinds of stories happening, and the CBS guys are walking around with their camera crews, and they're getting verbally assaulted for just being CBS camera crews. And so it's dangerous sometimes for people don't understand that journalists take real risks on both sides of the story. And because they're independent of anybody, and they're dealing with protesters, some of which might be angry with them because they don't think they're doing enough or they're not covering it the right way. Even those people can be, but I imagine in this case, it seems more like you're on team protester, because those are the people who will let you be around them and photograph them. And the other people, you're just trying to not get shot by.
Yeah. It's you're not welcome as press from the side of the administration and the agents right now. So I mean, some of them are more friendly. Some of them recognize you. I've having covered these guys through multiple states, there are some familiar faces, and uh, they know who we are.
Right.
And like, I don't know, you just try to remain respectful, but do your job and document what they're doing.
So we had a couple questions on here. People were wondering how you go about selling your photograph as freelance photographers. So I'll let you guys handle that.
I'll let you take that. You go ahead.
Well, and plus, for Pierre, you talked this morning about this particular set of photographs and what you guys are trying to do with those, and you can talk about that too, because I think it might help what you guys are doing.
Cool. No, so this particular set of photographs, what I would like to do is get John to make some prints out of them and do a limited run of a sort, and with both our signatures, and sell them to raise funds to support the community, Minneapolis and St. Paul communities that are being terrorized by these
what aspect of the community would you guys support?
There's a number of 501c3s that are working to help the various immigrant communities, Latino and Somali, especially, kind of come to mind, that are out there that I've made some contact with, and I'll be able to direct funds to from the sale of the prints.
That's great.
Let's see. Angry old twat. Okay. She wants to know, she or he, I don't know. How often do you guys been tear gassed or pepper sprayed here in the US? Is this attack on press normal for heated events?
Several times.
Yeah, a couple times, but nothing like this event for me was over the top. Like getting pepper sprayed alone. Getting pepper sprayed alone is like intense, but getting shot, getting taken to the ground by a football team, getting the tear gas in close range. It was, I don't know where that canister went off, but it was close. There's another photographer told me, he's like, he was like in between the legs of the agents taking my photo, and he's like, at some point I couldn't see anymore, so I backed out, and I'm like breathing that, and I literally can't breathe. I mean, it was intense, and then the pepper spray on top of that. I mean, it was like one thing after another. I'm like, I'm 100% like defenseless.
We have another one. Let's see. This is a good question from Deb. Has covering these protests changed how you think about being objective or how you approach telling the story? Objectivity is one of those big questions in journalism, and I always tell people, I don't know if my job is to be objective. My job is to be fair. That's how I look at objectivity. Trying to be fair. What do you guys think about this?
Objectivity is, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Has it changed how you feel about?
I'm there to record what's going on, right? And if a protester does something inappropriate and it happens to get on camera and documented, and that instigates the agent's response for some reason, you know what I mean? Like it's, I mean, no, you're just there to record and document. I think, like, you're not picking a side. But I mean,
at a certain
John,
point,
I mean,
at a certain point when you cover something, you, first of all, when I go into a story, when I've ever been storytelling, I always look at it like I kind of have a perceived notion of what I think the story might be, but I want to have an open mind that if it changes, I can pivot. If I'm going to Minneapolis right now, my perception from watching the news as an objective viewer is that these people are not being nice to normal people. And when you hear, people say things like, oh, they're, domestic terrorists, but you see 70, 80-year-old people walking around with signs, or you see, college kids walking around with signs, and everybody saying they're paid, George Soros paid, actors. That's just not normal. And so when people say things like that, of course, my objective truth is that that's bullshit. So I don't have to give the other side unless you present me with evidence that shows me receipts that they're being paid, that's objective. I'll give you the opportunity. But from an objective standpoint, I try to be fair. And as photographers, you guys are capturing everything around you, right? I mean, it's what you do. And
Yeah.
objectivity is just to capture those moments, like Pierre was saying. Do you have any thoughts?
Well said.
Okay, let's see.
Did you want to comment on that, John?
Oh,
John?
I think he's frozen.
Yeah, he must be.
There he's.
Nope, he's out.
He's out. He'll come back again, probably, hopefully. Did you notice any of the right wing media that were there, or are they being treated any differently than other reporters who are covering these events?
I would say that they are not particularly welcome, and they keep their distance once their presence is known to the crowd.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, Holly's got to reinvite Jonathan to get him back on here. Sure. There he is. I don't know. His phone might have died on us. See if he makes it back. What's this next one? Black and white to capture the greatest. Oh, somebody's wanting to know why you guys are still shooting black and white. What the purpose of it is and why you still like doing it. You're old school for a reason, because you and I grew up in a newspaper time when everything in the newspaper for USA Today was black and white.
Seriously, I think it's an aesthetic, and it's one that I like. It's a personal thing. I mean, the images of John were shot in color. I mean, the camera I use is shooting color, so I have to do the black and white thing post. But I think it's just it's an aesthetic, and I think it's a choice on John's part, and just part of the way he likes to present his work. And I, for one, really enjoy black and white photography and would probably only present that, but that's not the journalism side of things. That's the more artsy side of things, art photography type.
Nowadays, most places that are going to run your stuff are probably going to run it in color. Yeah. If you've ever been in an art studio and you see something in black and white, and you look at it, it just has a different feel to it, man.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow suspends the moment in time in a different way.
There's a different attention and a different, I think, it depends on what the photographer wants to show you. What are they trying to tell you? And I think black and white has a way to maybe, I was going to say draw more emotion, but then I'm thinking about images that I've seen in color lately and from friends' work covering the same stuff, and color is very powerful. So, I mean, I don't think there's a right or wrong.
Yeah. I think we've tried to get John back a couple times and we've lost him. It's one of those things where his camera, his phone or whatever he's using might have run out of battery or something. I don't know.
Oh, no. Okay.
But I'm going to have a couple more questions. Are you anymore?
I did not catch what you said.
Do you ever worry about the stuff you shoot being censored?
Like, you mean just not? Can you elaborate on? I mean, you mean just being like not shown or not, or edited or changed or something, or
the things I guess the question's coming from a viewer. It's probably that they're asking if it gets out there that people don't want to show it because it's showing something that they don't want, the government doesn't want you to see.
Good. Put me on that list. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think that would mean that it's good work, right? So put me on the banned book list.
Does Minneapolis feel different than other protests you've covered?
The intensity of the agents is different. I mean, they are very hostile. There's no quarter. They for the most part just come at you really strong, and they're very unprofessional, to be honest. They scream, they cuss, they threaten. They wield their bear sprays and maces and paintball guns undiscriminately, and I think it's a powder keg. I mean, I know everybody's worried about it. Oh, he's back. All right.
Yeah. We were trying, John. We didn't leave you out. We sent you 4 invites, and it kept going
Yeah,
that on.
it kept spinning. So yeah, all right.
Um. Oh, yeah. So somebody's asking a real sort of basic question. What are your requirements for press credentials? Everybody wants to know how to get their hands on a press credential because everybody now is a citizen journalist, right?
No kidding. National Press Photographers Association, NPPA.
Mhm.
And also, guys, if you're covering something in your local town, a lot of communities like police departments and so forth. I know New York has a big program that you have to go through to get press credentials, and it allows you access to things that if you don't have those credentials, they'll just push you away and say you're not registered media. They shouldn't be able to do that, by the way, because being a part of the First Amendment, you having First Amendment rights means you can record equally as if a press person is there. It's the same First Amendment. And you should be able to record anything without them saying, "Well, you shouldn't be here. You're not media."
The
If you're
total,
be in a place, you're allowed to be in a place. I mean,
yeah, I think the total impact of the independent media people is pretty huge. Like, there's tons of people that have relatively small followers, but all those people added together is a lot. Is a huge impact. So, like, people that don't trust mainstream media can latch on to some independent media guy or one of us or whatever, and if they like what that guy's saying, they can follow them and get their news that way. But um, yeah, you should be able to do it without a press pass, which I usually do. Um, and I don't know if it would have helped me that day or not. To be honest, I'm not
yeah.
sure.
But I mean, I think like some communities where some of these viewers live, if you're actually trying to record or you're wanting to be, and you're an independent journalist, whatever that term means nowadays, it's
Mhm.
changed all the time. At this point, you could consider me an independent journalist, even though I had 30 years of covering conflicts around the world for the likes of 60 Minutes and Nat Geo, and I was a print journalist for Reuters, and you name it. But now I'm not, and so when I come up to something, I don't carry a New York Times credential or a CBS credential or 60 Minutes credential anymore. So if you're going to some place and you're covering something and you're actually covering it, find out what the community you're going to's requirements are for you to be able to be there and get harassed less is basically what you're trying to get. You're trying to be harassed less and be able to just flash a credential and have them fucking leave you alone so you can work. And
Yeah,
some of
ICE doesn't care, I'm sure.
they don't,
Yeah.
but it does matter in the sense that, um, you're right. ICE doesn't care. But like, let's say your local media are coming in and working around you. They're not doing that around ICE. They're not showing up. But it depends on which community you're at and where and who and where you're covering. And if you have an opportunity to get something like that, and you're legitimately covering something, take the opportunity to do it so you don't get bugged while you're there as much. But
Mhm.
I'll give you another example. Like I won this award from the Overseas Press Club of America, and it was called the Kaplan Award, and it was for um, covering war, international war stories. And uh, Kaplan was this guy who was a producer for ABC News, and he was killed in Bosnia Herzegovina during the Bosnian War, which I covered, by the way. But he was killed there. And when we used to run around in Bosnia at the time, the journalists used to put, it didn't matter. They would write press, or TV was even easier. Even if they were print guys, they would put TV and duct tape on their windows so that snipers at Sniper Alley wouldn't shoot them and kill them. And he was shot and killed right between the letters T and V in his car, right in the forehead. So,
Mhm.
some places it just doesn't matter what credential you have.
And some places like it even less. Like they're more likely to inflict some damage on you if you're press and showing what they don't want you to show.
Exactly. When we were covering war, I have a myriad of flak vests, and some concealable, and some with plates, and some whatever. I still have a bunch of those. And I remember when I first started working for CBS, they're like, we're going to give you your vest. I'm like, okay. So they brought a vest out, and it was this big blue, had press on it. And when you're in Iraq and Afghanistan, that does not help you at all. That means that when you're out in the desert, somebody can see your big blue vest. So it's like, I don't want a blue vest. I don't want to look militant, but don't want to be seen either. So it depends on what your protective gear, your PPE you guys were talking about earlier. It depends on what gear you should wear given the circumstance you're in. And if you're in a war zone, maybe a big blue vest with word press on doesn't help you, but maybe in a place like America in the United States, it might help you. And it depends on the circumstance. And if people are thuggish like ICE are, it doesn't matter at all. It doesn't matter at all. So we're going to take maybe 2 more questions, and we're going to let these guys go. They've given us a lot of their time tonight. What do you say to those who downplay the violence of what's happening in places like Minnesota?
John, go ahead. They're not watching they're not watching all the news. I mean, there's
and they're not here, and their 5-year-old wasn't ripped from their arms, or their dad wasn't snatched on the way home from work, or they weren't at Alex Preddy's scene moments after he died. It was total chaos. Like, people were bent over on the ground all around me that couldn't breathe because of tear gas, or a guy literally standing right next to me was shot in the sternum with a pepper bullet, and he was bent over and couldn't move. And it's here. It's not everywhere. Like, I can drive across the city and not see something, but it's definitely here.
Well, as photographers, what most people don't understand is you can't be 2 blocks away and doing your job. It's not like a print guy writing a story for AP who can sit in his office. And I'm not suggesting that's what they do, because I used to do stuff for AP and for Reuters, but you don't have to be right there. You could be on a phone talking to people about things. You can be interviewing witnesses on the phone, or 2 blocks from the action. But if you're a photographer, the only way you do your job is being right there in that moment. And the closer you are to things, the better photographs you make, and the more impactful photographs you make. So the guys that are doing this, like Pierre and Jonathan, are the closest you will ever see to people who have to get close to the action, including also videographers who have to be there too. So, which is why we're celebrating their work tonight and the kind of stuff they do. And I would say, just in a final point before we leave, all their stuff, you can go on my Facebook page, my personal Facebook page, or from the Writer's Cabin, both on Substack, I believe, but definitely on my Substack on Facebook. And you can find their social media. I encourage you guys to follow them, because they're continuing to cover this stuff. Pierre's in Texas right now, but I know he's going back. I talked to him this morning. I think you're going back soon, right?
Tomorrow.
And Jonathan lives there. He's not going anywhere until these guys leave his city. So follow them on their Instagrams and on their on their Facebook pages and all the other stuff that they're available on, so that you can support their work and give them feedback on the great stuff that they're doing. And on us, you guys are the live tonight, or all the paid subscribers. This stuff will go out to, again, tomorrow sometime. I like you guys have the access here, so you can jump in and ask questions and hear it firsthand. That's what you're paying for in a subscription, and you'll get more benefits from following us as well. But also, to you guys who are out there, please encourage those people who are unpaid subscribers to join, so that we could continue to do this work. I can promise you, like, I was shoveling the driveway an hour before this. So we have guests at our cabins this weekend. We can get them in here. The people who do this, when I worked for 60 Minutes, we had $200,000 story budgets. When I worked on National Geographic, we had $1.2 to $1.4 million per episode to make 45 minutes of television. These guys are not that, and neither am I.
That'd be so cool.
I wouldn't know what to do with all that.
Guys, my budget alone for
I'd buy a tank.
Oh yeah, my budget alone for armored vehicles in Erbil to go to Mosul was 3 vehicles a day at $2,000 per vehicle per day for 3 months straight. Right? Yeah. What could you guys do with that kind of money? Right? That doesn't include the suites that I had to rent to store 109 boxes of gear that we weren't taking to the front lines, because Nat Geo made us take that gear in case we needed something.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. And the $75,000 to $100,000 Nexus baggage fees per crew to get the stuff in and out of Iraq. So these guys don't have that kind of support. They rely on subscriptions and views and all the things that that make their photographs get out there to the world. So please support them, follow them, and when they have these photos for sale and you guys see them come up, hopefully they'll let me know, and I'll let my viewers know, so that you can either bid on them or buy them or whatever. You guys should do T-shirts with that picture of him chucking his camera, and you should do T-shirts, and we'll sell them on our page and get all the proceeds to whoever you guys want to.
That'd be cool. I'd be down for that.
Yeah. So I just love to wear that picture of you around here, like chucking the phone. What's the democracy dies in darkness kind of thing. That was Bezos' thing, I guess. Apparently,
working on it. He's working at it.
Yeah,
but I proudly showed that photo a couple of times, like checking out at the grocery stores.
Yeah.
They're like, "Hey, what have you been up to?" And I like pull out my phone, and they're like, "Whoa!"
Exactly. Well, I mean, I'm waiting to see the photo of Pierre taking your photo, taken by a photographer who's standing off that.
I would love to see that. That'd be cool.
Maybe I should have taken that shot from between the legs before I.
What were you doing, dude? Why'd you throw the camera? I mean,
you guys know Jao Silva's story, right? So Jao Silva was a war photographer. He still is a war photographer, and he was in Afghanistan, and he stepped on a landmine.
That actually, I thought of that when I took this photo. I mean, not while I took my last photo. I took my last photo when I was on the ground underneath all these guys. And later on, I thought of him where he was stepped on a landmine, and he kept taking photos when they were dragging him away until he passed out.
Yeah, they put him on the stretcher with his legs gone. Yeah, and he somehow, with the adrenaline push, had his camera and sat up and started taking pictures of himself. In the moment, and was taking pictures of things around him as he was on the stretcher being medevaced out. And when I saw your picture of you on the ground there, it reminds me of a lot of these moments. I've seen, cameraman hit. I've been shot in Iraq. I was shot in Iraq, and I've been in landmine explosions where a vehicle I was in blew up, and people next to me lost their legs, and I walked away with scratches on my elbows and knees. Like it's one of those kind of situations when you're in a place like that, and especially in protests, you guys. Protests are places where any number of things could happen. You could get trampled, people could shoot into a crowd, and you don't know it's coming. You don't know it until it hits you. And those are very dangerous situations, not just about tear gas. When you have these yahoos running around with M4s with fully loaded magazines, there's no telling what will spook those guys and give them an excuse to shoot it at a group of people. So just the last thought is applauding these guys. Thank you very much for coming on tonight. And
thanks for your time, Jeff.
Yeah. And more people will see your stuff and follow these guys in Minneapolis so we keep this story in Minneapolis going. It's really important to democracy. So thanks everybody. And we're signing out now. Guys, thank you.
I'll see you tomorrow, John.
All right.
See you.
Later.